The message in the smoke the battlefield was a sea of fire. Black smoke rose into the alien sky, turning the air into a choking wall of heat. The ground shook with every blast. Buildings were nothing but twisted metal and broken stone. Ethan Cross, a human soldier, moved carefully through the ruins. His boots crunched over glass. His rifle was hot from constant firing. His heart was pounding, but his mind was sharp. He had been trained for war, and yet, this war felt wrong. He had been told the mission was simple: push the enemy back and secure the area. But the enemy wasn't just soldiers. Somewhere beyond this smoke, innocent people were trapped. Then, through the static in his helmet, a small voice broke in. "Please, my mother, they will take her away." "I'm scared." Ethan froze. It wasn't a soldier's voice. It was a child. He tapped the com. "Who is this? Where are you?" There was silence, just the crackle of static and the distant roar of battle. Then the voice came again, trembling. "They have her. She's hurt. Please help." Ethan looked. Around, the signal strength was weak, but pointed toward the enemy side of the city. It was far. Too far. And between him and that voice were hundreds of hostile soldiers. His orders were clear: to fall back and regroup with his unit. But his gut twisted. Somewhere out there, a child was about to lose their mother. He whispered to himself, "Orders be damned." With a deep breath, Ethan moved forward. The smoke was thick, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Shadows moved within its hole, alien shapes, their armor glowing faintly through the haze. A blast exploded nearby, sending shards of stone into his arm. He gritted his teeth and pushed on. Every step was slower than it should have been. The heat from the fires was almost unbearable. The voice came again, faint but desperate. "We're near the big broken tower. Please hurry." Ethan pictured the area in his mind. The tower was deep in enemy territory, near their forward base. It was suicide to go there alone, but he didn't stop. A sudden movement in the smoke. 3 enemy soldiers appeared, weapons raised. Ethan dove behind a piece of rubble. The air lit up with energy blasts. He returned fire, hitting 2. The third tried to flank him, but Ethan charged forward, slamming the butt of his rifle into the alien's helmet. The soldier fell, and Ethan kept moving. The smoke cleared just enough for him to see a tall figure ahead. She was holding a small child, shielding them with her own body. Her long hair, silver under the firelight, clung to her dirt-covered face. Ethan's heart kicked harder. This had to be them. But before he could call out, a dozen enemy troops emerged from the ruins around her. They were armed, armored, and closing in. The woman's eyes met his across the distance. Even through the chaos, he could see the fair end. Something else. Hope. The child turned, eyes wide, staring at him as if they knew he was coming. Ethan gripped his rifle tighter. He was too far to help yet, and they were surrounded. He had to move now, or it would be too late. His instincts screamed at him, charge forward, take them down. But his training told him to be smart, to use the smoke and fire as cover. The leader of the enemy squad stepped forward and grabbed the woman by the arm. The child screamed, kicking against the soldier's grip. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. He started to move low, fast, silent. Every second counted. He was 20 steps away when the leader raised a blade to the woman's throat. The child cried louder, reaching out for her. Ethan's mind was no longer thinking about survival. It was only thinking about one thing: get to them. The smoke shifted, swallowing him again. He could hear boots pounding, voices shouting in a language he didn't understand. Somewhere ahead, the child's voice cut through the chaos one more time. "Please, save my mom." And that was when Ethan broke into a run straight into the heart of the enemy. Through fire and steel, Ethan didn't stop to think. His boots pounded against the cracked ground as he broke from the cover of smoke. The air between him and the alien soldiers shimmered with heat. Each breath tasting like ashdot. The enemy squad noticed him instantly. Shouts rang out in their language. Energy blasts cut through the air, bright streaks of light slicing past his head. Ethan dove to the left, rolling behind the remains of a metal wall. The impact rattled his teeth. He returned fire, his rifle's barrel glowing as he picked targets with precision. 1, 2, 3 soldiers down. But there were too many. The alien woman Kael, though Ethan didn't know her name yet, pulled the child tighter against her chest. Her long silver hair fell over the child like a shield. She tried to back away, but the leader's grip was like iron. Ethan knew he had seconds before they took her deeper into enemy lines. He spotted a narrow gap between two half-collapsed walls. It was risky, but it would get him closer without giving them a clear shot. He moved low. Fast, the heat from a nearby fire searing the side of his face. The enemy leader barked an order. 2 soldiers advanced toward his position, weapons ready. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, waiting until he saw the shadow of the first soldier. Then, swift and silent, he lunged. His rifle cracked once, dropping the first enemy. The second swung his weapon, but Ethan slammed into him, knocking them both to the ground. A quick strike to the alien's helmet knocked him out cold. Ethan grabbed the fallen weapon and kept moving. Now only 6 soldiers stood between him and the woman. Kael's eyes locked on his again. He saw fear but also trust, as if she somehow knew he wouldn't leave them. One of the soldiers raised a rifle toward her. Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped into the open, firing twice. The alien collapsed, its weapon clattering to the ground. That was when all hell broke loose. The remaining enemies turned on him, firing in rapid bursts. Sparks flew from the rubble as energy bolts tore through stone and metal. Ethan darted behind cover, switching between his rifle and the captured alien weapon. The alien gun was powerful. Its shots burned through armor like paper, but it had limited charge. He used it carefully, taking down the 2 closest soldiers before ducking back into the smoke. The leader snarled something and shoved Kael toward another soldier. The child cried out, clinging to her. Ethan's blood boiled. He fired again, forcing the leader to back off. With each step forward, Ethan felt the world narrow. No mission, no mission, no war. Only them. The last 2 soldiers charged at him. One swung a long blade, glowing blue. Ethan blocked with his rifle, the metal sparking from the impact. He kicked the alien's legs out, sending it sprawling. The other enemy tried to grab him from behind, but Ethan slammed an elbow into its chest, then twisted and fired point blank. The alien fell with a heavy thud. Now only the leader was left. The towering alien raised its blade toward Ethan, but instead of attacking, the leader pressed the weapon to Kael's neck. "Drop your gun, human," the alien roared in broken English. Ethan froze. His finger hovered over the trigger. One wrong move, and Kael would be dead. The leader smiled, cruel. Jagged Grenon started backing away, dragging Kael and the child with him. Ethan slowly lowered his weapon, but not all the way. Then, in the corner of his eye, he saw the flicker of movement, Kael shifting her weight just slightly. She was giving him an opening. Ethan took it. He dropped to one knee and fired in a single, precise shot. The bolt hit the leader's weapon, knocking it from his hand. Kael twisted free, shoving the child toward Ethan. The leader roared and charged. Ethan caught the child in one arm, firing with the other. The blast struck the alien in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. Kael stumbled to Ethan's side, breathing hard, her arm bleeding. The child clung to both of them, trembling. For a moment, there was silence except for the crackle of nearby fires. Ethan's voice was steady. "We need to move. Now." Kael nodded, still holding his gaze. They won't stop coming. He knew. She was right. The sounds of boots in the distance told him more enemy troops were on the way. He adjusted his grip on the child and motioned toward the ruins ahead. "Stay close. I'll get you out." They ran together, weaving through the broken streets, vanishing back into the smoke, leaving behind the bodies of those who had tried to stand in their way. The unlikely alliance, the smoke was thinning. But the danger was not. Ethan moved quickly through the ruins, one hand gripping his rifle, the other carrying the small alien child. Kael ran beside him, her steps quick despite the wound on her arm. Behind them, distant shouts echoed through the streets. The enemy had found the bodies. They would be coming. Ethan stopped at the corner of a broken wall, raising his hand to signal Kael to pause. He scanned the road ahead. Clear for now. He set the child down gently. "You okay, kid?" The girl nodded shyly. Her eyes were a strange, deep violet, reflecting the glow of the fires behind them. "My name is Lira." Ethan gave a small smile. "I'm Ethan." He looked at Kael. "And you?" She hesitated before speaking. "Kael." Her voice was soft, but carried strength. "You risked your life for us. Why?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He checked the corners, making sure no enemy soldiers were closing in, because no child should be left to die, and no mother should be taken from her. Kael studied him, her silver hair falling over her shoulder. "Then you are not like the others?" Ethan frowned. "What others?" "You're kind," she said quietly. "The soldiers who came before you. They burned homes, took prisoners. They called us enemies. They never asked if we fought in the war." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to hurt civilians. That's not what I signed up for." Kael's gaze softened just slightly, but she still looked guarded. "You should know. The ones chasing us will not stop. I am not just any woman. My bloodline is important." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Important how?" She took a breath. "I am of the royal house of Viren. My family once ruled this world before the war. Now they want me dead so no one can claim the throne." Ethan glanced at Lira, who was holding her mother's hand tightly, and her. Kael's voice trembled for the first time. "She is my daughter. If they take her, they will use her to control what is left of my people." Ethan's instincts screamed at him this was worse than he thought. Helping them meant every enemy in the city would be after him. But looking at the child, her small hand clutching her mother's, he knew he wasn't walking away. "We get you both out," he said firmly. Kael tilted her head. "You speak as if you will succeed." Ethan smirked faintly. "I've been through worse." Before Kael could answer, the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder behind them. Ethan looked around fast. The street was too open, they needed cover. He spotted a half-collapsed building with a hole in the ground. "There," he said, pointing underground tunnels. "Move." They slipped inside, climbing down into the dark. The air below was damp and cold. The walls lined with old pipes and cables. Kael kept one hand on Lira's shoulder, the other clutching a dagger from her belt. Ethan took point, his flashlight beam cutting through the shadows. The tunnel stretched far, twisting like a maze. "You know where this leads?" he asked over his shoulder. Kael nodded. "If we follow this path, we can reach the lower district. There is a safe place there." They moved quickly, but not without tension. Every sound echoed, the drip of water, the scurry of rats, the distant hum of machinery. Halfway through, Kael spoke again. "Ethan, you should leave us here. If you are caught with me, your people will call you a traitor." He didn't slow down. Not happening. You don't even know me, she insisted. I know you're a mother trying to protect her kid, Ethan replied. That's all I need to know. For a moment, Kael said nothing. Then softly she added, My people tell stories of a warrior from the stars who will fight for the crown, not for himself. They say he will come when hope is lost. Ethan chuckled quietly. Let's hope they weren't talking about me. I'm not much of a crown guy. But Kael didn't laugh. She just looked at him in a way that made him feel the weight of her words. Finally, they reached a ladder at the far end of the tunnel. Ethan climbed first, pushing open a metal grate. Cool night air rushed in. He helped Lira up, then Kael. They emerged into the lower district, a place of narrow streets and shadowed alleys. The fires of battle were distant here, but the air still smelled of smoke. Ethan checked his gear. Where's this safe place? Kael pointed toward a cluster of old stone buildings. There is a cellar beneath the old market. We can hide there. They started moving, keeping low. But as they turned a corner, Ethan froze. Up ahead, in the dim light, stood an enemy war camp, tents, armored vehicles. Kael's breath caught. This wasn't here before. Ethan's mind raced. The tunnels had brought them out in the wrong place. They were right in the middle of enemy territory again. Lira gripped his hand. What do we do now? She whispered. Ethan didn't answer right away. He scanned the camp, looking for any path through. One thing was certain. Getting out was going to take more than stealth. It was going to take a fight. The price of protection. Ethan's instincts screamed for him to back away, but it was too late. Beam of light swept across the street, catching them in its glow. An alien guard shouted, and within seconds, soldiers poured out from the war camp. Run, Ethan barked, pulling Lira close. Kael grabbed her daughter's other hand, and they bolted down the street. Energy blasts lit the darkness, tearing chunks from the walls around them. Ethan fired back, hitting 2 soldiers. But there were too many. They turned a corner straight into a solid wall of armored troops. Ethan raised his weapon, but a blow from behind knocked it away. Hands grabbed him, forcing him to the ground. Kael screamed as soldiers yanked Lira from her arms. Don't touch her, Ethan roared, struggling against the weight of 3 soldiers holding him down. Kael fought like a wildcat, but one of the guards slammed a shock baton into her side. She collapsed, gasping in pain. A deep, rumbling voice spoke from the shadows. Bring them. The soldiers dragged Ethan, Kael, and Lira toward the largest tent in the camp. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of oil and metal. Weapons and alien banners lined the walls. On a raised platform sat the warlord. He was huge, 7 feet tall, muscles like stone, his armor dark and scarred from countless battles. A jagged crown rested on his head. His eyes glowed faintly yellow, locking on Ethan with cold amusement. So, the warlord said in broken but clear English, "This is the human who kills my soldiers." Ethan stared back, unflinching. Let them go. The warlord's grin widened, showing sharp teeth. You are brave. Or stupid. Maybe both. He rose from his seat and walked slowly toward Kael, who was kneeling with her hands bound. Do you know who she is, human? I know enough, Ethan said. She is a problem, the warlord growled. Her blood can unite the rebels. If she lives, the war lasts forever. If she dies, the war ends. He turned to Ethan. Here is my offer. Walk away now, and I will spare your life. Leave the woman and the child. They are not your kind. They are not your war. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not happening. The warlord's eyes narrowed. Refuse, and you die with them. Ethan didn't. Look away, better than living as a coward. A tense silence filled the tent. Then the warlord laughed a deep, booming sound. You have fire. Human. I almost respect it. But respect will not save you. He gave an order in his own language. 2 guards grabbed Kael and Lira, pulling them toward a side door. Ethan lunged, but the soldiers holding him forced him back. Kael's voice broke through the chaos. Ethan, he met her eyes. She didn't plead for her life, only for Lira's. Protect her, she whispered. The warlord stepped closer to Ethan. Execution at dawn. Until then, you will rot in my cage. They dragged Ethan outside and threw him into a reinforced metal cell at the edge of the camp. The door slammed shut with a clang. Inside, the air was cold. The only light came from a small slit high in the wall. Ethan sat against the wall, breathing hard. In the distance, he could hear Lira crying. Every sound of her fear was like a blade twisting in his chest. A shadow fell across the cell door. One of the guards leaned in, speaking in a low voice. They will take the child before sunrise. The warlord, he has plans for her. Ethan's blood ran cold. What plans? The guard didn't answer. He just smirked and walked away. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, forcing his mind to focus. He couldn't wait until morning. He had to get out tonight, somewhere beyond these walls. Kael and Lira were counting on him, and he was going to get to them no matter how many soldiers stood in his way, breaking the chains. The camp was quiet now. But not asleep, Ethan sat in the dark cell, his back pressed to the cold wall. His mind wasn't resting, every sense was awake, every thought fixed on Kael and Lira. He could still hear the faint echo of Lira's crying somewhere in the camp. He couldn't wait until dawn. Dawn meant death. Ethan examined the cell door. The lock was alien tech smooth, with no keyhole. He reached into his boot and pulled out the small multi-tool he'd carried since his first mission. It wasn't made for this kind of lock, but he had no choice. He worked quickly, feeling for the faint vibration inside the panel. Sparks hissed. Then, with a sharp click, the lock disengaged. He slipped out, crouching low. 2 guards were posted nearby. Speaking in low voices, Ethan picked up a loose stone and tossed it toward the far side of the fence. The guards turned at the noise. He was on them in seconds, silent, fast, and deadly. The first fell with a strike to the throat, the second with a knife between the armor plates. He dragged them into the shadows and took one of their energy rifles. The weapon hummed faintly in his hands. Moving between tents, Ethan kept to the darkest paths. Patrols moved in pairs, but the camp was too large for every corner to be covered. Finally, he reached the prisoner area. Kael was there, chained to a post, her silver hair dirty and tangled. Lira was in a small cage beside her, curled up in fear. Kael's head lifted when she heard him. Her eyes widened. Ethan, she whispered. He held a finger to his lips. Quiet. He crouched by Lira's cage first. The lock was crude compared to his own cell. He broke it easily and lifted her out. She clung to his neck, burying her face against him. Next, he turned to Kael's chains. They were heavy, forged from alien steel. He tried the rifle. One quick burst cut through the links. With a bright flash, Kael stood, rubbing her wrists. I knew you'd come. We don't have much time, Ethan said. Where's the fastest way out? Kael pointed toward the far wall. There's a gap near the supply tents. But we must pass the central fire. The guards never leave it unprotected. They moved quickly, Ethan leading with the rifle ready. But just as they passed between 2 tents, a shadow loomed ahead. A massive alien soldier stepped into view, blocking their path. He was taller than the warlord, wearing heavy armor, his weapon a huge double-bladed staff. You are the human, the soldier said in a deep voice. The one who shames our warriors. Ethan raised the rifle. Move. The alien only grinned and charged. Ethan fired, but the staff spun, deflecting the energy blasts. The soldier closed the distance fast. Ethan dodged the first swing, the blade slicing through the tent wall like paper. Kael grabbed Lira and pulled her back, shouting, "Ethan!" The second swing came for his head, but Ethan ducked and slammed the rifle into the alien side. It barely staggered him. He switched tactics, pulling the alien dagger Kael had given him earlier. The blade pulsed with faint blue light. The alien swung again him, caught the shaft of the weapon, twisted hard, and drove the dagger into the gap in the armor. The soldier roared and fell to one knee. Ethan pulled the blade free and finished the fight with a final strike. The alien collapsed, unmoving. "Let's go," Ethan called, and they ran. They reached the supply tents, weaving between crates and barrels. The gap in the wall was just ahead, but shouting erupted behind them. More soldiers had found the bodies. Blaster fire lit the night. Ethan turned and fired back, forcing the enemy to dive for cover. Kael pulled Lira through the gap, then turned to cover Ethan. Her aim was perfect. 2 shots, 2 enemies down. Ethan followed her through, and they ran into the dark forest beyond. The camp branches whipped against them as they pushed forward. They didn't stop until the glow of the campfires was gone. Finally, they collapsed against a fallen log, breathing hard. Lira clung to her mother, and Kael turned to Ethan. "You risked everything again. Why?" Ethan looked at them both. "Because you're mine to protect now, both of you." Kael's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Then you should know this will not end. The warlord will send his best after us. You've made yourself a target." Ethan checked his rifle, then smiled faintly. "Good, makes it easier to find them." Somewhere in the distance, the howl of alien beasts echoed through the trees. The night wasn't safe, and the chase was far from over. The last stand. Forest was alive with danger. Moonlight filtered weakly through the twisted alien trees, casting long shadows over the uneven ground. The wind carried strange animal calls, some distant, others close enough to make Lira tighten her grip on her mother's arm. Ethan led the way, rifle in hand, eyes scanning for movement. Every step was careful but quick. He knew they didn't have much time before the enemy caught up. Kael moved silently beside him, keeping Lira close. Her wound from earlier still bled slightly, but she didn't complain. Behind them, faint shouts echoed in the night. The warlord's men were following. "They're closer," Kael whispered. "I know," Ethan replied. "We can't outrun them forever. We'll make a stand." Kael frowned. "Here, in the open." Ethan shook his head. "Not here. We need higher ground." They moved deeper into the forest until they found a rocky ridge that overlooked a narrow path. Any pursuers would have to come through there in single file. Ethan climbed up first, then helped Kael and Lira. He quickly checked his rifle and the alien dagger. The weapon's faint blue glow looked even sharper in the dark. "Stay behind me," he told them. Kael looked at him steadily. "I will fight too." Ethan didn't argue. He'd seen her she could handle herself. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, through the shadows, figures began to appear. The first wave of soldiers came quietly, thinking they could surprise their prey. Ethan fired first, his shots dropping too before they even raised their weapons. Kael fired next, her blast striking another in the chest. The narrow path worked in their favor. Only 2 or 3 enemies could attack at a time, but the enemy kept coming. Energy bolts flew back at them, burning into the rock around their cover. Lira crouched low, covering her ears from the noise. Ethan fought with precision, each shot calculated. When his rifle overheated, he switched to the alien blade, cutting down one soldier who tried to climb up the ridge. For a moment, It looked like they might hold the line. Then the forest seemed to go quiet. Too quiet. A shadow moved at the far end of the path, massive, slow, and deliberate. The soldiers stepped aside, letting the figure pass. It was the alien general, easily 8 feet tall, covered in heavy armor, etched with battle marks. He carried a massive war axe that looked like it could split a tree in half. His glowing red eyes locked on Ethan. "You," the general said in a low, rumbling voice. "The human who defies my lord." Ethan didn't lower his weapon. "Yeah, that's me. You will die here," the general promised, stepping forward. He moved with surprising speed for his size. Ethan fired, but the shots barely scorched the thick armor. The general swung his axe, forcing Ethan to dive aside. The blade slammed into the rock, sending cracks through it. Kael fired at his back, but the armor absorbed most of the impact. The general turned and charged at her. Ethan leaped between them, blocking the swing with his dagger. Sparks flew as the alien metal met the glowing blade. The general snarled, pushing down with crushing strength. Ethan gritted his teeth, his arms shaking under the pressure. With a sudden twist, he rolled to the side, letting the axe bite into the ground. Then he slashed upward with the dagger, cutting through one of the armor straps. The general roared. In anger, he swung again, forcing Ethan back toward the edge of the ridge. One wrong step and he'd fall. Kael shouted, tossing him a small round device-pulse grenade. Ethan caught it, pulled the pin, and slammed it into the general's chest before shoving him back. The grenade exploded in a flash of blue light, sending the general staggering. His chest plate cracked, exposing the vulnerable flesh beneath. Ethan didn't hesitate. He drove the dagger deep into the opening. The general gasped, eyes widening, then fell to his knees. "You will fail," he growled before collapsing, unmoving. The remaining soldiers hesitated, their morale breaking. Without their leader, Ethan raised his rifle and fired. Forcing them to scatter into the darkness, silence returned to the ridge, broken only by Ethan's heavy breathing. Kael moved to his side, her hand on his arm. "You saved us again." Ethan glanced at her. "We're not safe yet. Let's move before they regroup." They climbed down the other side of the ridge and into the deeper forest. The distant glow of the enemy camp was gone now, replaced by the faint light of the stars above. Somewhere ahead, Kael said, was the safe house if they could reach it before sunrise. Ethan adjusted his grip on his rifle. "Let's finish this." Family by blood or by choice, the forest thinned as dawn touched the horizon. The first pale light of morning spilled across the trees, chasing away the shadows of the long night. Ethan could feel his legs aching, but he didn't slow. Every step forward meant Kael and Lira were closer to safety. Kael walked beside him, her silver hair tangled, her arms still wrapped in makeshift bandages. She kept one hand on Lira's shoulder, guiding her carefully over roots and uneven ground. The little girl's eyes were tired, but she didn't complain. "We're close," Kael said softly. "Just beyond that hill." Ethan scanned the surroundings out of habit. The night had been brutal, and although the enemy had been pushed back, there was always a chance they'd try again. They climbed the hill, and on the other side, tucked into a valley, stood a small stone structure, half hidden by overgrown vines. From a distance, it looked abandoned, but as they drew closer, Ethan saw faint lights inside. "This is it?" he asked. Kael nodded. "It was once a merchant storehouse. My people use it now as a refuge for those hunted by the warlord's forces. No patrol dares to come here." Ethan didn't relax until they reached the door. Kael knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more. A small hatch slid open and a pair of alien eyes peered out. The door creaked open, revealing an older alien man with deep wrinkles and a heavy cloak. "Kayla," the old man breathed. "We feared you were gone." "We almost were," she said, glancing at Ethan. "But someone came for us." The man's gaze shifted to the human, studying him carefully before stepping aside. "Come in." Inside, the air was warm, smelling faintly of herbs and cooked grain. Several refugees sat along the walls, alien women, children, and a few wounded men. Their eyes widened when they saw Kayla alive. One woman rushed forward to embrace her. The warlord's hunters said, "You were dead." "Not yet," Kayla replied. With a faint smile, Ethan set Lira down on a padded bench. She curled up immediately, her small body sinking into the cushions. Her eyes closed, exhaustion finally claiming her. Kayla knelt beside her daughter, brushing hair from her face. "Sleep, little star," she whispered in her own language. Ethan stood a short distance away, giving them space. He leaned his rifle against the wall, feeling the weight of the night catch up to him. His arms ached, his side burned where a near miss had grazed him, but it was a good kind of pain. The kind that meant they were alive. Kayla rose and walked to him. "You should rest too." "I will," he said, "but I need to know what happens now." Kayla hesitated. "Now, we disappear. We wait. I must reach the remaining loyal clans and convince them to unite. If they do, the warlord will fall." Ethan's brow furrowed. "That's a dangerous plan." She met his gaze. "Freedom, always." There was a pause, and then she stepped closer. "Ethan, my people have a custom. When someone saves a mother and child, they become family. Not just in words, but in truth. That person is bound to us as blood." Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "Sounds serious." "It is," Kayla said. "Lira will grow up knowing you as her protector, her kin, and I will know you as the man who crossed fire and steel for us." Before he could answer, a soft voice spoke from the bench. "Father." Ethan turned. Lira was awake again, looking at him with wide violet eyes. "You saved us," she said simply. "You're my father now." The words caught him off guard. In all his years as a soldier, no medal, no rank, had ever meant more than those few words from the little girl he had carried through war. He knelt beside her, resting a hand on her small shoulder. "Then, I guess I'm not going anywhere." Kayla's expression softened, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked at peace. Outside, the sun rose higher, painting the sky gold. The world was still dangerous, the war still raging, but inside that stone refuge, they had something the enemy could never take. Family. Ethan leaned back against the wall, letting the warmth of the fire and the quiet murmur of voices fill the room. His eyes closed, but his mind stayed alert, because now he wasn't just fighting a war. He was fighting for them, and he would fight for them until his last breath.